Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series on the life divine with our beloved Ranga. We are now on page 400 in the eternal and the individual.
So, today we are going to go through the last two paragraphs of the chapter,
Yes.
the eternal and the individual. And the next chapter is the divine and the undivine. So, Srenda is dealing, just before we start, I'll tell you what he has said in the previous para, so that we get the link of what he's saying. And then also just a basic principle that normally it is thought that God and the physical world are opposites, that they have nothing in common. In fact, this is the first experience when you go to the spiritual plane of consciousness, you see the world as unreal. That's why the theory of Maya, illusion comes up. But Srimdo's take is different. He says that however contradictory it may seem, there is actually a connection and a divine life on earth is possible. So throughout Life Divine, he is keeping on stressing this connection between the divine and the undivine. The eternal and the individual are not opposites. They are complementary aspects of the same thing. So this is what he's saying. God takes on an infinite state, and also he takes on a finite state. It is God himself who does that. He becomes timeless, he becomes time. He becomes formless, he becomes form. There is a very deep connection. In fact, the whole world is nothing but the divine.
But unfortunately, most of the West cannot see this.
That's right.
Because they attribute the good to God and the evil and the darkness to the devil.
Right. That is the Manichaean theory, and there are many who believe that. How could God have created suffering and pain and perversion here? Not possible. But you are seeing it in that way here because you are ignorant. Your soul has been covered up with many layers of ignorance. It is veiled. So you remove the veils, your consciousness rises to the next level and you start seeing things in a different way. It's like wearing goggles. If I am born with blue goggles, I'll see everything blue. But we have to take off that and then you will see the real colors. Okay? So, this is the theme throughout. Srivda is constantly busy connecting the two. Now, I'll read out the summary of what he has said in the previous para. This is not Srivda's words, these are my words, but basically the idea is the same. The contradictions and differences exist in the temporal world, the world of time and space, and therefore the reconciliation cannot be found here in time and space. Time is a field of succession of events. Time is a sphere of conditions, relations. Time itself varies on different planes of consciousness. Okay, so time varies for different individuals, even on the same plane of existence. That is to say, that time is not an absolute and cannot explain the primary relations of the absolute. When you are in time, it's not possible to understand that. Now, what are the primary relations? Saguna, Nirguna, the qualified and the unqualified, the one and the many, the conditioned and the unconditioned, the static and the dynamic. All these exist, coexist, and are complementaries, not opposites. In the supermind and in the overmind, they are not contraries there. They all become opposites in the physical world, in the field of time and space. Okay? To our body, life, mind, the many seem to have come out of the one at some point in time. We always feel, and this is a very common idea in science also, that the world started at some point in time. Okay? The Big Bang theory. Okay? It started 14 billion years ago. So all that idea. Similarly, the conditioned has come out of the unconditioned. The conditioned is the physical world of the forms. And again, at some point of time, they may disappear into their source. There is the basic idea. But this is not so. They both exist simultaneously and in each other and by each other. So it's not that the world has come out of the spirit. It's not that. They both exist together. They have always existed together because they are essentially the same thing. That's what he's saying.
And what was before the Big Bang?
That's right. That is the problem that science has to answer.
Exactly.
But they can't answer that. So, so this is what Swamdev is saying. Then he says, it was thought that the universe appears and disappears rhythmically. But even that does not mean that in the appearance only the relatives exist, the relatives in the physical world, and in the disappearance only the absolute exists. But this is not so. They are simultaneous and complementary. Their reconciliation lies not in time and space, but the divine timelessness or eternal time. This is what he said in the previous para. So now we'll read what he has to say now. There we see that all meats and all principles, all persistent relativities of existence, for the finite as a principle of being is as persistent as the infinite, stand in a primary relation to each other in a free, not an exclusive unity of the absolute, and that the way they present themselves to us in a material or a mental world is only a working out of them in secondary, tertiary, or yet lower relativities. So, we stop here. Okay. Now, there we see that all meats and all principles and all persistent realities of existence. There are three nouns: principles, realities, and meats also is a noun here, not a verb.
Yes, it is.
It's a noun. And that means what is proper, what is suitable. This is what now. We also use the word in the sense of it is meet that you should be like this or you should be like that. It is suitable, it is proper. In that sense it is used.
Even true. It can
Yeah.
even be true.
Yeah.
It is meet that
Yeah,
something is.
That's
yes.
right. So proper,
Mhm.
suitable,
Yes.
true. Yeah. Okay, so there is saying, there we see that all meats and all principles, all persistent realities of existence. Now this is something special again. Srimdo's style. Nobody employs this style. He puts in parenthetical phrases with a comma dash. So we have to read the sentence. I'll read the sentence first without the parenthetical phrase. Then we'll read the parenthetical phrase separately so that we understand what he's saying. So I read the sentence again without the parenthetical phrase. There we see that all meats and all principles, all persistent realities of existence stand in a primary relation to each other in a free, not an exclusive unity of the absolute. And that the way they present themselves to us in a material or a mental world is only a working out of them in secondary, tertiary, or yet lower relativities. So, what does he mean? He's saying that all these things that you see here in the physical world stand in a primary relationship. So, what is that primary relationship? It's a, you can say, parent and the child. So, that's a primary relationship. The parent and the child. He is talking of the transcendental. The primary is the transcendental, the secondary is the universal, the cosmic, and the third is the individual. So, what is the relation between all these? How does it come? There is a gradation. So, the primary relation you could say parent and child. The secondary relation could be a little farther away from the truth. Okay, so maybe uncles, aunts, half brothers. They are the secondary relationships. Then what about the third? Okay, cousins, friends.
Friends. Yeah.
They are still they are related, but little farther away. So this is also the truth of the transcendental God then God creates the universe, which is, there is a relation between them, but a little farther down, not as real as there. Then the third one is even farther away. So that's what he's saying. The world, the spirit, or if you want to simplify it, God, the universe, and the individuals. So these are the relations that he's talking about. It's an interesting way of putting it. So then actually you can carry this even further, okay? After the tertiary relation, you could say that the fourth type of relationship would be the boss and the worker. There's really no relationship, but there's still some sort of relationship. They are working in the same place and they are related to each other in a certain way through wages. Okay, this is my own addition. Okay, then the fifth type of relationship would be a mere acquaintance.
Ah,
A mere acquaintance, just a little farther away. Then the last one would be the enemy.
yes, of course.
So this is the idea that they are saying God and the world are opposites, but it's not so. They are related, but they are graded relationships. That's what he's saying. So interesting.
So you're going to read it now with the parenthetical
Yes.
phrase.
Okay. So, all persistent realities of existence. Now he is adding as a parenthetical phrase, for the finite as a principle of being is as persistent as the infinite, which we read is the summary of the previous one. That both exist together and both are as real as each other. There is an idea that the forms in the physical world are as real as the divine. But essentially, they are divine.
It's a very interesting point.
Yes. But as again, there's a gradation. So as you keep climbing up in consciousness, in the beginning you will see that yes, they seem to be opposites. The Mayavada philosophy, the Buddhistic philosophy, they feel that they are opposites. But as you keep going higher and higher, you see that they are not that opposite at all. They are not that contrary. There is a relationship. So in the physical world, the stone, the reality is there behind, hiding. But you don't see it here at this level. You go up, you start seeing the reality even of those things which seem to be transitory and not permanent.
There's a quote of Sri Aurobindo that I can only paraphrase a little, but he says that man should think that he can do anything that thought reveals to him, for God is in him.
Yes,
God is in all of us.
that's right. And he is about to do all sorts of things, go out into space and conquer space. So that is nothing, that's still physical. So he has to go on to the other worlds and do all those things which they want them to do. Okay, so clear now? So there we see that all meats and all principles, as Narad said, you could replace the word with truths. So we see that all truths and all principles, all persistent realities of existence stand in a primary relation to each other in a free, not an exclusive unity of the absolute. Exclusive unity, you are something else than me. This is excluded. But when I go to the cosmic consciousness, I see that you are me really and I am you. Essentially, we are the same. So that is exclusive. There's no exclusivity. There's all inclusivity. Okay, so stand in a primary relation to each other in a free, not an exclusive unity of the absolute. And that the way they present themselves to us in a material or a mental world is only a working out of them in a secondary, tertiary, or yet lower relativities. So the relationships become farther and farther away. But they are essentially the same. Okay, so we go to the next sentence. The absolute has not become the contrary of itself and assumed at a certain date real or unreal relativities of which it is originally incapable, nor has the one become by a miracle the many, nor the unconditioned deviated into the conditioned, nor the unqualified sprouted out into qualities. So, basic idea is repeating again that there is a great relationship between the two and both exist together. One is not the result of another. That's basically what he's saying. But there's another way of looking at it, which there is a primary reality and a secondary reality. There is nothing absolute in the world. The absolute is only at the highest level. It's possible to see in so many different ways. So, okay, so the absolute has not become the contrary of itself and assumed at a certain date real or unreal relativities. So, there is including both, because the real would be the Upanishadic, the Advaita philosophy. Okay? And unreal would be, depends at which level you are. If you are in the nirvanic consciousness, you will see it as unreal. So they are relativities. Relativities they all are. Everything is relative because there is the field of multiplicity. The oneness is on top and here everything is multiplicity. Multiplicity implies relativity. For something to be relative to something else, you need two at least. You can't have one. So it suggests multiplicity. Okay? Of which it is, nor has the one become the many by miracle the many, nor the unconditioned deviated into the condition. Look at the way Srimad is explaining. Deviated. It's not a deviation. It's not a diminution. It's essentially the same. So, there's a way of looking at it. Nor the unqualified sprouted out into qualities. So, you can, in Sanskrit, they use the words unqualified nirguna and there is a saguna. Without qualities. The divine is, at that level, featureless, static, infinite, eternal. You can't describe the divine. If you want to describe the divine, you need to have qualities. You need to have characteristics. If there are no characteristics, you can't speak about it. That's why they are all above language. Okay, so he's saying it is not that the unqualified has produced the quality. They are both together at the same time. Okay, so these oppositions are only the conveniences of our mental consciousness, our divisions of the indivisible.
Beautiful. Huh?
So this is for practical reasons, if in the physical world, if I see everybody as one, how am I going to deal with them? And if everything is one, then what is the point? The development has to take place and the development has to be through various possibilities. So therefore the multiplicity is essential here. And therefore it has to be relative also. Okay, so the absolute, these oppositions are only the conveniences of our mental consciousness, our divisions of the indivisible. Okay. The things they represent are not fictions, they are realities. But they are not rightly known if they are set in irreconcilable opposition irreconcilable opposition to or separation from each other. For there is no such irreconcilable opposition or separation of them in the all view of the absolute. So, at this level, we see dualities, we see opposites, and they are valid at our level. You go to a slightly higher level, you start seeing that they are not opposite, but they are complementary aspects. Then you go even higher up, they are not even complementary aspects, they are all one. So, this is the gradation that he is talking about. Okay, so depending at which level of consciousness you are. Then,
so when one takes birth in a human body, one may have some remembrance of past lives, but most people don't. So how does this gradation, this understanding come about, except by a very slow process of uncovering?
Yeah, we spoke about veils. Huh?
Yeah.
So the divine veils himself purposely and comes down into the seeming opposite of himself and he is now slowly going back again. So this unveiling has, in the descent, in the involution, the divine veils himself at each level with more and more opaque veils. Now the evolution, you have to uncover the veils one by one. So the body is a veil, the vital is a wave, the veil, the mental is a veil. So when you uncover these veils, you go to the spiritual planes of consciousness. Then your view changes entirely. Okay? You go even higher up, again things change. At every level, things change. This is something that happens even in the physical world, as you said. Depending on your position, you start seeing things in a different way. So it is so obvious, but spiritually it is even more striking. Okay, it's very easy to say that. We have seen maybe examples we have given. There are some new people here, so I give that example of the keep a one line, straight line, without any dimensions, at your eye level. What will you see? You will see a point. You go up or take that down, you will see a line. You have changed your position and you see a different thing. The other thing is again the example of the train moving and you are on the platform. You are in a static condition and the train is moving slowly. Someone sitting in the train is playing with a ball. He is throwing the ball up and it's coming down. Throwing the ball up. The train is moving at 20 miles an hour, let us say. Okay. The one who is sitting in the train, the movement of the ball will be vertical, up and down. No difference. But the person who is standing on the platform, the movement will not be up and down vertical. It will be like this. So it depends exactly, even in the physical world, you can see things in a different way depending on how you are looking at it from what angle. Spiritually, it is 10 times more striking. That's all. So, now, we read the next sentence. This is the weakness not only of our scientific divisions and metaphysical distinctions, but of our exclusive spiritual realizations, which are only exclusive because to arrive at them, we have to start from our limiting and dividing mental consciousness. Okay, so what he's saying is striking. He's saying this is the weakness not only of our scientific divisions and metaphysical distinctions. The scientific divisions also, if you are always in the relative field, your knowledge is always relative, it will never be complete. That's why science proceeds by theorizing. It makes a theory which suits the data you have collected. But a new data comes in, you have to change your theory. Okay, you had the Newtonian theory, then you have the Einsteinian theory of relativity. Something else will come at a later date, it will go on. Like you have to go on changing. Okay, and he is saying the same applies also to metaphysical distinctions. There is the Advaita, the one. There is nothing else but only one reality. That's the Advaita philosophy, the Vedanta. Vedanta has got several branches. Then there is the Vishishta Advaita. The human soul and the divine soul are essentially one. There is no difference. That's the Advaita. Then there is the Vishishta Advaita. There is a difference and yet there is no difference. Ramanuja's theory. Vishishta Advaita. Bheda, Bheda. Bheda and Abheda, both are possible. You can have a relation with the divine and you can become the divine. Okay? You can have unity with the divine, you can identify yourself with the divine, but you can also have a relation. How can love be there unless there is a relation? So, the love of God will take you to the Bheda Bheda. There is a difference. Okay. So, then there is a third philosophy which says that no, they are eternally separate. So these are all the different types of philosophy that are there. That's what Swami is mentioning. He is saying the metaphysical distinctions, weakness of our scientific and metaphysical distinctions. Don't judge from one single standpoint. Take all the standpoints into account, go to the highest absolute, and you will see the reality.
Would you explain about our exclusive spiritual relations?
Exclusive spiritual relations, okay, realizations.
Sorry,
Yeah,
realizations.
that's
Yes.
exactly what we discussed just now.
Yeah.
If I realize that I am the divine, which you can identify yourself, because that's the path of karma yoga leads you to the nature of the divine. You become like the divine. There's a story of Kutsa and Indra. Okay, so that's really, it illustrates the theory that you can become like the divine. So the story goes like this: that Kutsa is there. Kutsa is a human being, and he is riding in a chariot with Indra. Indra is the divine. Okay, and they are going to heaven. By the time they go to heaven, Kutsa has become like Indra, and only nobody can make out the difference between them except Indra's wife, Shachi, because she is pure and she can see. She has discrimination, but nobody else can make out the difference between Indra and Kutsa. This is the story in the Vedas which illustrates the you're putting on the nature of the divine, and there is no distinction between the two. So that's one relationship. But I can have another relationship. I can have a relationship of love, devotion. There's a difference. So that's another realization. You can have a realization of the nirguna. Nirguna means the featureless, the qualityless. You are in a consciousness which is eternal, infinite, absolutely free, okay, peaceful, no movement at all, immutable, but there is nobody there. That's the impersonal aspect of the divine, nirguna. But you can have a relation with the divine in a form. If you want to see him as Shiva, you will see him as Shiva. If you want to see him as Buddha, you will see him as Buddha. You want to see him as Christ, you will see him as Christ. Depending on how you want to see him. He himself is formless. The way you approach him, he will present himself to you in that way. So that's the Saguna.
So many have the same experience, but they interpret it differently, because a Christian may have the same experience as a Hindu,
Yes.
but he'll say it's different.
Yes. That's the whole problem. That's why some say that you have to go only through Allah.
Yeah.
Some will say, no, you have to go to God divine only through Christ. so this is the no exclusivity. That's one of the strong points of the Advaita philosophy. You are free to approach the divine in whatever way you want. All are acceptable. Okay, so we go down to the next sentence. Okay, so in fact he's saying this is a weakness not only of our scientific divisions and metaphysical distinctions, but of our exclusive spiritual realizations, which are only exclusive because to arrive at them we have to start from a limiting and dividing mental consciousness. You spoke about exclusive spiritual realizations. We might go a little more in detail, and if you have the experience of the impersonal aspect of the divine, you see the physical world as unreal. That's the Mayavada philosophy, the Buddhistic philosophy. It's a solution for the removal of suffering in the world. It's a solution. It's valid. But if you experience the Purusha consciousness and you start seeing the physical world not as unreal but as mechanical energy, you end up with the Sankhya philosophy. So that's a different metaphysical relationship again. Or if you have a relationship with the divine in love, you will end up with the perception that the physical world is nothing but a play of the divine, Leela. So you will end up with the Leela theory. So these are what I'm really speaking about. Okay, so we have to make the metaphysical distinctions in order to help our intelligence towards a truth which exceeds it, because it is only so that it can escape from the confusions of our first undistinguishing mental view of things. But if we bind ourselves by them to the end, we make chains of what should have only been first helps. So, you are seeing certain things in a certain way here, fine, they are valid here. But if you change your stance and go up, okay, your values will change, and you cannot now use the old values. So this also Srimda explains in a very simple way. He says that there are sense values in the physical world. Then there are mental values. Then there are spiritual values. Every time you go from one level to another level, your values change and your way of looking at things will change. If I give one example of the sense values and the mental values, you will immediately see the point. Okay, so my senses are telling me that the sun is moving up in the morning. It's coming out and moving up. Senses are clearly telling me that the sun is moving. That is sense value. Comes reason, your mental value, and says, no, that's an illusion. That's not true. Your values have changed. You are seeing things in a different way. Now you go to the spiritual level of consciousness, again there different things differ. Mother says that the difference even between spiritual consciousness and the supramental consciousness is even more striking. So what is valid at one point is not valid at another higher level. That is the reason why the Gita advises people not to give knowledge of a certain level to those who are at a lower level, because you will confuse them. That should not be done. Okay, so that's what he's speaking about. So he's saying now, I read that sentence again. Okay, so we have to make the metaphysical distinctions in order to help our intelligence towards a truth which exceeds it, because it is only so that it can escape from the confusions of our first undistinguishing mental view of things. But if we bind ourselves to them to the end, we make chains of what should only have been first helps.
So the evangelist is putting things into people's minds.
Yes.
Who may not be ready for them yet.
Yes, that's true. And also you should not spoon feed anybody. Let them discover the truth for themselves.
Yes.
What is valid for you may not be valid for somebody else. It's even true at the physical level. Okay. So, we have to make use too of distinct spiritual realizations which may at first seem contrary to each other, because as mental beings it is difficult or impossible for us to seize at once, largely and completely, what is beyond our mentality. But if we intellectualize them into soul truths, as when we assert that the impersonal must be the one ultimate realization and the rest creation of Maya, or declare the Saguna, the divine with its qualities, to be that, and thrust away the impersonality from our spiritual experience. So, this is what he is given two examples. We have to see that both these realizations of the great spiritual seekers are equally valid in themselves, equally invalid against each other. They are one and the same reality experienced on two sides, which are both necessary to the full knowledge and experience of each other and of that which they both are. Okay? He uses the words obverse and reverse. Take a coin. The coin is one, but there is an obverse side and a reverse side. So Saguna and Nirguna are that. Personal and impersonal are that. There are many people who insist on the divine only being impersonal. The Buddhists say that. The Mayavadins say that. Okay, our Jiddu Krishnamurti says that. Even Sadhguru says that in a certain way, because he says that God is your own invention. God is a mental conception. There is no God. It's only a state of consciousness. Peace, freedom, sense of infinity. That's all. There may be even be power, love, but these are all impersonal. So you should not think that that's the only truth. Sri Aurobindo is saying that. That's why Sri Aurobindo is so inclusive. And he always uses the word integral view of things. Not exclusive view, but inclusive view. Okay, so I read the next sentence. So is it with the one and the many, the infinite and the finite and the infinite, the transcendent and the cosmic, the individual and the universal. Each is the other as well as itself, and neither can be entirely known without the other and without exceeding their appearances of contrary oppositions. So not only are they essentially one, but they are even included in each other. The finite includes the infinite, and the infinite includes the finite. Again, we come back to those 4 lines of Blake.
Blake, yes.
William Blake. What are they? To see heaven in a wild flower and in a grain of sand. What is that? Infinite. I've forgotten the exact words.
In the hand.
To see heaven in a wild flower, and infinite in a grain of sand.
Yes.
Hold
eternity
in an
hour.
hour. I'm forgetting the line. Let it be.
Infinity in the palm of his hand.
Yeah?
Infinity in the palm of his hand.
Infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour.
Yes.
That's right.
And eternity in an hour.
In an hour.
There we are. So, next para.
Yeah. We see then that there are 3 terms of the one existence: transcendent, universal, and individual, and that each of these always contains secretly or overtly the 2 others. The transcendent possesses itself always and controls the other 2 as the basis of its own temporal possibilities. That is the divine, the eternal, all-possessing God consciousness, omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, which informs, embraces, governs all existences. The human being is here on earth. So now Srimad is saying that God takes 3 states of existence: the transcendent, the cosmic, and the individual. The transcendent is that consciousness which is outside the universe. Before the universe has been created, there is only God. That is the transcendent. Man can experience the transcendent consciousness also. Below the transcendent creates the universe. And the universe creates all the individual forms. And the individuals can be an atom, it can be an insect, it can be a cat, dog, an animal, and a human being. So, when the human being comes, things change altogether because he becomes a conscious instrument. But these are all the individuals. So, 3 levels: transcendent, cosmic, and individual. So, now he has spoken about relationships. So, the relationships in the transcendent, okay, they are all related to each other in a primary relationship. That's the overmind consciousness. In the overmind consciousness, the multiplicity has started, but they are all related to each other. Like all the gods are related to each other. Then in the cosmos, it is a slightly lower level. It's a secondary relationship. And the individual is a tertiary relationship. He is going back to what he said earlier in different words. Okay, so we see then that there are 3 terms of the one existence: transcendent, universal, and individual, and that each of these always contains secretly or overtly the 2 others. In other words, the transcendent contains the cosmos and the individual. Okay, and the other also, the universe contains the individual as well as the transcendent hidden in itself. The individual also contains the universe hidden in himself, but he also contains the transcendent God in himself hidden. So that's what he's saying. The transcendent possesses itself always and controls the other two as the basis of its own temporal possibilities. Now, Sri Aurobindo often uses the word possess. So, when the transcendent possesses itself means it is absolutely master of what it wants. When you possess something, you can do what you want with it. So, this divine possesses himself. He is master of himself. Are we masters of ourselves? No. We don't possess ourselves. We will possess ourselves only when we go up to that level. Okay, so the transcendent possesses itself always and controls the other two as the basis of its own temporal possibilities. Temporal possibilities in time. That is the divine, the eternal, all possessing God consciousness, omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, which informs, goes into the form. Okay? So I always use the word inform in that sense, not in the sense of information. No. Informs in going into the form. Embraces, governs all existences. So, the human being is here on earth the highest power of the third term, the individual, for he alone can work out at its critical turning point that movement of self-manifestation which appears to us as the involution and evolution of the divine consciousness between the two terms of the ignorance and the knowledge. Now, this needs a little bit of a explanation. So, Aurobindo is very clear that when man appears in the evolution, it's a turning point. Because he says, before man comes, the evolution is slow, labored, and mechanical. The inconscient produces the matter produces life, and life produces different qualities of life. Plants, animals, lower animals, higher animals, finally man. Now, the animal can't do yoga, but man can do yoga. In other words, he can now hasten the evolution. First in himself, and then that also spreads to the cosmos. So it's a turning point. That's what he's saying here. If you read that carefully, we'll see that. Okay. The human being is here on earth, the highest power of the third term, the individual. For he alone can work out at its critical turning point, the turning point of the evolution and manifestation. Manifestation and evolution. That movement of self-manifestation, which appears to us as the involution and evolution of the divine consciousness between the two terms of the ignorance and the knowledge. So, knowledge on top, ignorance below. Man can now turn ignorance into knowledge. The animal cannot do that. So, that's why the human being is a critical turning point. It can go much faster now, the evolution. The power of the individual to possess in his consciousness by self-knowledge his unity with the transcendent and the universal, with the one being and all beings, and to live in that knowledge and transform his life by it, is that which makes the working out of the divine self-manifestation through the individual possible. And the arrival of the individual, not in one but in all, as the divine life is the sole conceivable object of the movement. So what he's saying is that the divinization of life is the only purpose of self-manifestation. There are those who don't have that concept at all, but there's a slow evolution going on and there'll be a divine manifestation at the level. He has gone one step further and he says that out of the animal has come man, and out of man will come the Superman. And he will be much more divine than what man is. Man is more divine than the animal, but the Superman will be superior to man in this way. There will be, and that's why the next chapter is the divine and the undivine. Okay, so I read the next sentence. The existence of the individual is not an error in some self of the absolute, which that self afterwards discovers. Okay? It's not that God made a mistake. Okay? For it is impossible that the absolute self-awareness of anything that is one with it should be ignorant of its own truth and its own capacities and betrayed by that ignorance either into a false idea of itself which it has to correct or an impracticable venture which it has to renounce. Neither is the individual existence a subordinate circumstance in a divine play or Leela, a play which consists in a continual revolution through unending cycles of pleasure and suffering without any higher hope in the Leela itself or any issue from it except the occasional escape of a few from time to time out of their bondage to this ignorance. So he's saying that even the Leela, the theory of Leela is fine so far as is concerned, but that's not the ultimate object. The object is not to have only a play of Leela here. The object is evolution. That's what Swami is stressing here. Theory of Leela is fine. It's wonderful to think that the world is a play of the divine. But it is not only a play. There is also an evolution there. So, okay. We might be compelled to hold that ruthless and disastrous view of God's workings if man had no power of self-transcendence or no power of transforming by self-knowledge the conditions of the play nearer and nearer to the truth of the divine delight. In other words, he is saying that your idea of the leaving the physical world because it is undivine would have been valid if man had not the capacity to become divine. If the conditions in the physical world were permanent, then your theory would have been right. That's only a play or only a field of suffering and falsehood. But that's not so, because man is now capable of surpassing himself and there's an evolution. That's what he's stressing. Okay. In that power, the power of the human being to become divine, in that power lies the justification of individual existence. He often uses this sentence in a very interesting way. The justification for the existence of suffering here will be seen when you go to the next level of consciousness. You will see that suffering has a purpose. It is justified. Here at our level, it doesn't seem to be justified at all. You suffer and you think it is horrible, but it has a purpose. So, what that purpose is, it is goading you towards a higher level. Okay, so in that power lies the justification of the individual existence. The individual and the universal unfolding in themselves the divine light, power, joy of transcendent Satchidananda, always manifest above them, always secret behind their surface appearances. This is the hidden intention, the ultimate significance of the divine play, the Leela. Leela is fine, but there is a hidden intention, and there is the rising to the next level of consciousness, okay, and evolution. The ultimate significance of the divine play, the Leela. But it is in themselves, in their transformation, but also in their persistence and perfect relations, not in their self-annihilation, that must be unfolded. Self-annihilation, the Mayavada theory and the Buddhistic theory. Okay, so otherwise there would be no reason for their ever having existed. Why should God have made the suffering and all that if there were no purpose in it? But this is valid only in the Advaita philosophy. The others are saying suffering is something which is not created by the divine. So that's a different theory altogether. Okay. Otherwise, there would have been no reason for their ever having existed. The possibility of the divine's unfolding in the individual is the secret of the enigma. His presence there and this intention of self-unfolding are the key to the world of knowledge, ignorance. So, there is knowledge here, there is ignorance, but there is a purpose for that. So, that's the next chapter, the divine and the undivine.
Thank you, Ranga. Namaste, all. Of course, we will have on Wednesday the synthesis of yoga, same time. On Friday, essays on the Gita, and on Saturday, Savitri.